Welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rollison, also known as T-Roll. And tonight, I'm joined by my good friend, Anthony Amato, who we like to call Shamato. We are sadly missing Sandy tonight. We're missing Justin.
Conspicuously, since Marvel is supposed to be back.
Dude, that's right. That's right. So those of you who are true fans of the pod know that whenever there's a Marvel movie, if it's even slightly good, Justin will come on here and be like, "Guys, is Marvel back?" And Justin knew the answer to that question so clearly that he didn't even show up for the podcast.
Yeah. I heard he left the country.
Yeah, he unfortunately had something kind of urgent come up, so he could not make it. Last minute thing. It's a bummer. We miss you, Sandy. Hope everything's all right. Everything will be fine, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. No one's worrying here. No one is worrying about our friend. He'll be back for the next pod, hopefully. But we did see the movie last night. I was with him. We went to the theater. It was a good bit of us. Shamato, you weren't able to be there, sadly.
Yeah.
What was your theater experience like?
Honestly, it was initially I thought it was going to be awful. Because we were in the biggest theater that they have at the location that we were at.
Yeah.
And when I bought the tickets, we were the only people there. We were the only people in
Like
there.
you could see the seats.
Yes,
yeah,
I could
select
see.
your seat.
Yeah, when we selected the seats, it was empty.
Yeah.
Like, now I will. It probably ended up being about 10 people in there, which is
Dang,
still
only
awful.
10?
But like initially, I was like, it would be insane. And I will admit,
You go in
when
like
I
the
do this,
afternoon, right?
I like to go. Yeah, I went to like a 4:30 show.
Yeah,
So like there is that element to it, but still, it's opening day of
Well, Marvel movie.
a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
That should be across the board. It's not a small town that I saw it in. Like, I mean, it's not like enormous, but it's not like it was out in the
It's a suburb.
boonies.
It's a suburb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Our theater experience, the theater was awesome. We enjoyed going to the theater we went to. Had some recliner chairs. We went to a different theater, which was great. But there was one other. We had a group of like 8, which was cool. And there were maybe 10, actually. And then there was another group of probably 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And actually, a good bit of the chairs were full. But because they're recliner chairs, there's like less of them. So it wasn't like a big theater in terms of numbers of seats, numbers of people watching. But
like mine was like the size of like an IMAX theater. It wasn't the IMAX theater,
right?
But like it was like that.
Yeah. So it was the theater experience was okay. It was kind of just kind of like the movie, to be honest. But let me before we get into the movie, let me thank everyone who is tuned in. We appreciate you so much, and want to thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening. And also, if you want to help us out, here's 2 things you can do for us. Leave us a review. That is a great way, especially on Apple, one of those nice, sweet 5-star reviews that really helps us. It really, really does boost the algorithm, And also, if you got any friends who enjoy Marvel content, got any friends who happen to see Captain America Brave New World, just send them this link to this particular episode of this podcast, and that would be a great help to us. So, anything you want to say before we say the spoiler warning, Shamato?
I mean,
besides the fact that Marvel is not back.
I mean, just go to the movies. I'm not gonna say that. Like, whether you feel like Marvel is back or not, however you may have felt in this, go to the movies. Like, it can still be a super fun experience. I know it's frustrating because of the price of things and the price of movies in general, but like, just go.
It's a good word.
Have fun.
So nothing about the movie, but just another reminder to go to the movies. I'm with you. All right, I think it's time to break it down. Here is your spoiler warning for Captain America: Brave New World. Shamato. Boy, oh boy. Again, not a bad movie. I'll say this. Not a terrible movie, not an excellent movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in that.
Just a movie.
It was like, meh. Like, it was literally just
yeah,
kind of there. I mean, there were a few good moments, but I felt like there was a lot of just, I don't know. I feel like I was watching. There were definitely moments where I felt like I was watching a TV movie.
Wow. Yeah.
And there were a lot of times, and not like streaming.
No, you mean like back in the day, like a TNT movie or something? Yeah. USA movie.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. And it just there was a lot of like. I feel like there was a try hard in a lot of the movie where I felt like there were a few actors that were trying to be more than they really needed to be, and it didn't really play off that well.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's fair. Yeah, a little bit of context. So, first of all, the movie on Rotten Tomatoes scored right now at time of recording this podcast, it is at 50%. So, literally as mid as you can possibly get. Literally mid. For years and years and years, every Marvel movie was like 80, 85 plus. Yeah. A lot of them in the 90s. So we've got, that's the thing. A little bit of the problem is we got some really high standards. Marvel in Phase 4 and now 5 has been hit or miss. I think that's safe to say, right? Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah, very hit or miss. Probably more miss, especially when you add in the TV series. A lot more miss. But there have been some good movies since Endgame, since the Infinity Saga. But it's literally been hit or miss. Unfortunately for this movie, I mean, it's so funny that one of the tones of the whole plot is Sam continuously dealing with, can he follow Steve Rogers?
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of funny because in the movie itself he deals with it, but also like we're talking about like, yeah, when you compare this to
can
other
fill the shoes of Chris Evans, you know?
Yeah, certainly Chris Evans, but I do think Anthony Mackie did a good job, but just in general, the movie itself, like, it's not as good as the other 3 Captain America movies.
Yeah,
right.
And unfortunately, I think part of it's just there are limitations on what his character can do.
Yes, I mean,
like just because of the fact that he never took the super soldier serum,
which again was a point of the movie.
Yeah, which it really is. Like a lot of it mirrors what happens in there. Is that because like you can only take him to a certain point. You know,
yes,
and it'd be believable to an extent.
Exactly.
And of course they didn't exactly superpower his sidekick either. So like it didn't give them any extra oomph in that category as well.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the beginning of the movie they really, really tried hard to lean into how supposedly awesome his suit was supposed to be.
Right.
I feel like they really, really pushed that point, and I think it was a conscious effort to kind of fill in the gap that we were all feeling from not having a super powered being with a like OP suit.
Yeah.
Like because like when, you don't necessarily have to have superpowers to lead a movie. You can be like we Tony Stark,
exactly.
like
great example,
but he also like he built an OP suit that made him so much better, and I think that's kind of what they were trying to go for in this movie. But I don't know how much it didn't really seem to live up to that legacy.
Exactly, that's a good word to say. So yeah, so in the context of the MCU in general, it comes at a time where. This is still Phase 5, right? I'm pretty sure. Or because like they slowed things down, but I still think they're in Phase 5.
Yeah.
The last movie they did was Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a great success. I think overwhelmingly. I mean, it's not the greatest movie ever, but I think everybody who watched it pretty much loved it. And when you compare this movie to the other Captain America movies, it's just not that great. Like I said, 50 on Rotten Tomatoes. Justin, who's not here, he said the movie is just very mid.
Very much
for all of our Gen Zers out there, right? I think that's still accurate slang right now. I got no idea. The word slang probably isn't even in anymore. But nonetheless, Marvel's not really in anymore, so they're trying to find their way back in. Amato, do you want to go? You want to go with some positive things first, or constructive, negative things first? What are you thinking? What's your vibe? What kind of mood you in tonight?
Let's go positive because I feel like
let's do it.
In general, what ends up happening is when we get to the negatives, it's like if we didn't love the thing, it'll dominate the movie. Yeah, so let's start with the positives, and then we'll work our way to the negatives.
Sounds good. So what are some of the positive elements of this film for you? Give me one.
Speaking of the suit, I did like the fact that they integrated vibranium into his wings. Yeah. I felt like that was a cool idea.
Yep.
And giving it like the pulse thing. I think that was really, really cool.
Yep. The kinetic energy or whatever.
The kinetic energy.
Yeah.
Was I think that was it was a really cool idea, and I think
smart, really.
Yeah, it was really smart, and once again, it was a good way for them to naturally build up the suit's ability.
Yeah.
Because it was something that was already in the universe. We already knew that this was, kind of happening and things like that. So I thought that was really good. I like the fact that they tied in some content that was essentially forgotten.
Can I speak on the suit real quick?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I also agree with the suit. The look of it, I did like the look of it. I know we're trying to be positive here, but I would say I wanted a little more. I guess that's my one thing where because the big fight with the Red Hulk comes at the very end of the movie, you don't really see the suit do much until then. Does that make sense?
You get a little bit in the first Sidewinder fight.
That's right.
But he spends a lot of time outside of his suit.
Maybe some of the dogfight. I'm trying to remember if there was anything in the Indian Ocean where the suit. But yeah, I just want a little more. But again, I think maybe an opportunity missed. But I like the idea of integrating the vibranium, the relationship with Wakanda. Yeah. I think that was good. So, but okay, keep going. I think I know where you're going next.
So like I said, I like the fact that they integrated some things that were from past universe or past movies that were kind of forgotten. I like the idea that they finally address what happens to Tim Blake Nelson's character, from the Incredible Hulk.
Yep.
I think that was a cool idea to bring him back in a way. How you felt like the performance went and everything like that. That's another part of the. We can talk about that later, but I like the fact that they brought back somebody who was already in the MCU created and, was a part of this. So I did enjoy that. So that I
agree. And I felt the same way having Thunderbolt Ross in previous projects. Yes. Every time they brought him back, like in Civil War, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So to see Stearns...
Because they have built-in credibility.
Exactly. So to see Stearns again after so many years...
Yes. Literally, it's been 16 years.
It's remarkable.
Since he was in a movie.
Yeah.
For the MCU.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I did like that. And I did like... although not everything was explained so well, it's just he's really smart. That was basically the explanation.
Yes.
I liked what he could do... but again, it missed a little bit.
Yes.
So we can talk about it later.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I also I did one of the best parts for me was the fact that once again it was actually dealing with them connecting to other parts of the MCU.
Yeah.
Number one.
Here we go.
Actually addressing Tiamat.
Boom. It finally happened to Amato.
A huge part of the story.
Emphasis on huge. The size of this thing.
That was really cool seeing.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember in Eternals if we necessarily got true, the scale of what we were actually looking at. I felt like we just kind of saw it out of the ocean, but we didn't get anything, to give us perspective.
Yeah.
And in this, we did.
Yeah. Sam's holding on. He's on the side of it at one point. You could literally see how big that hand is.
It was literally... Like they said, it was literally an island,
Yes.
of its own right. So I thought that was cool that they finally addressed that. Yep. And then connected to that was introducing another one of the quintessential elements of the MCU, adamantium
of Marvel, and now the MCU.
Yes. It was already in the MCU.
Well, okay, but you know what I mean.
But but
historical in Marvel and not really tapped into in the MCU.
Yes, not really touched yet. The introduction of named adamantium in the main storyline of the MCU.
Yes.
Super important element. Of course, everyone knows it as being what is in X-23 and Wolverine's body. And I think it's just like it is one of those things that honestly, it was probably the most known. Like 25 years ago, it was probably the most known fake element, like in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
There's been some other things that have kind of like been talked about more, like vibranium's really, ticked up in like
the last couple decades
in knowledge. Basically since the first Black Panther came out and some other things, unobtainium from the Avatar universe.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like has kind of like built it up, but like adamantium was like the fake element for a very long time.
Yeah, and it is you do. I would say they do this part well, they do this part well mainly because of Harrison Ford's performance, which I think is another positive.
I do think he did well. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll come back to him, but I think they give you the physical scale of, they call it the Celestial Island with Tiamat, but also they give you, I think you really sense just how important the adamantium is.
Yes,
like. You don't see it at work. Like, it's the focal point of the first scene. You learn that that's what they were trying to retrieve. You sense that it's important. You don't see it at work just yet, but you could see the power grab from some of the world's top countries. So I like that. I can't wait to see more of that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I am totally with you on the adamantium and in the Celestial Island.
So. Yeah, and like I said, moving on to, I do feel like Harrison Ford had a solid performance.
He did. Oh, yeah, makes sense, right?
Yeah, it would make sense for him to have a solid performance. I think he did a good job of playing like this, this character who was kind of like, for moments you were kind of wondering what his real motives were. Mm-hmm. Like, did he actually believe what he was saying when he wanted to change to be a better person? Yeah, like, I feel like there is some like, is he just saying this to get what he wants? Because like although he has never played Thunderbolt Ross before, we have had interaction with Thunderbolt Ross, and he's a very hot-headed, like, he's a general who he's what you think of when you think of a general. Like, I'm going to drive forward and use force at every turn.
Yeah, right. Yes. I think Marvel, there's a lot of things about this movie that missed, but well done on the casting of Harrison Ford. I think they did a great job of, like, if you're going to get someone to play Ross, I think he captured it well. I loved his performance. He felt weak at times, not in his performance, but in Ross as a character, as a president. Like, didn't ever really feel like he was. And this was really the prime minister from Japan, I think, his point, right?
Yes.
Like he was struggling. But Harrison Ford's performance of Ross, I thought, was awesome. So well done there. And I would also say, I think Anthony Mackie did a good job.
Yeah, I think he did solid, but I don't know if he just had like the full presence necessary.
Yeah. I think it's just the sidekick syndrome, where it's like, can you ever not be the sidekick ultimately? Like, how many sidekicks can actually one day have their own, name brand project, IP, true, and be successful? I don't know how. It feels like it's more rare, you know. But I did like the struggle that he had with, I am not Steve. I'm not as good as Steve. The greatest part of this whole movie, honestly, comes in one of the worst looking scenes.
Oh yeah.
So the last scene where he's standing off talking to Red Hulk, and it just looks bad. The CGI looks terrible. It looks like they're just I couldn't see the green screen, but it looks like I was just looking at the green screen.
Oh, when it's switching back and forth between the two of them?
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
It's terrible. It looks awful. But at the best...
Especially him.
Yes, especially Sam.
Mackie, yeah.
Yes. But he delivers the best line of the whole movie, where he literally says, I think I got this verbatim. He says, I knew I should have taken that super soldier serum. Bucky is full of ish.
Yes.
And it's like, because earlier in the movie when Bucky makes his cameo, which is great, that was a good scene. You can just see the chemistry there. But when Bucky's there, he's talking about like, I should have taken the serum, and Bucky's like, no, you shouldn't have. You don't need to, Yes, you do, bro. Sam, I'm sorry. In 2027, that's where this movie is, bro. Captain America needs to have that super soldier serum, bro.
Yeah.
So all that to say, that line is my favorite line of the whole movie because it was the realest line of the whole movie.
Well, you also got to think. Okay, so it's interesting with Bucky because Bucky didn't take it on purpose.
Right.
Bucky was forced to take it.
Right.
Whereas Cap took it on purpose.
Right.
And not gonna jumping back a little bit in time, one of my favorite scenes in probably the entire MCU is actually dealing with that conversation in a lot of ways, like the idea of the super soldier serum. So there's a scene where Cap rescues Bucky.
Yeah.
And when you're seeing it, Bucky is asking these questions of Steve, of Cap, and the way they're kind of phrased and being asked from the perspective you have, you're like, oh, he's just trying to figure out how Cap feels about having the super soldier serum. But as you find out, he's not just asking because of that. He's asking because himself.
Yeah.
Because he knows what's in him.
Something's different. Yep.
He knows what's in him, and he's in that moment, you're like, he's scared. He wants some reassurance that what happened to him is it's
gonna be okay.
Is gonna be okay, and I think that's part of the reason why it just shows you kind of where Bucky's coming from. In this is you don't want to take it because he knows what it's like to take something like that, and although he takes it from the perspective of being forced instead of choosing to, but I think that's it's a good perspective to understand from Bucky's point of view why he's saying that, other than just the fact that you need to be you need to be the Shield without the superpowers.
Yeah, Shield without the serum. It makes sense why he says it. They're trying to build, and even from Marvel's perspective, they're trying to build him up as Sam is good without it.
Yeah.
But the truth is, there's just an element of realism. To fight the kind of threats that Captain America is probably going to fight.
I don't know. Maybe if they hadn't chosen Red Hulk as his
that
the
could have
person
helped.
he was fighting against.
Yeah, if it was just Sidewinder the whole time.
Yeah, Sidewinder and Tim Blake Nelson, they were kind of teamed up.
Yeah.
If that had been the issue the whole time, maybe it would have worked. But I feel like it was this over. I felt like there was this over it just didn't feel right at the end.
Yes, totally.
I guess we've kind of moved into the negatives realm.
Well, I'm trying to think. Let me think. There's got to be something else positive. I
mean, although I didn't necessarily particularly like the scene, I did like the fact that they brought back Betsy Ross.
Oh yes, sorry, Betty
Ross.
Ross. Yeah, Liv Tyler.
Yes.
Yeah. That was great. That was cool. I agree. I'm trying to think. I like that he was on the raft. I mean, I did.
I like the fact that they had the raft again, and that
there's some good interconnectivity.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, not a terrible movie. It's just, it's one of those things where it's these movies have so much to live up to now because of the success of the past, right? Okay. We will probably touch on other positive things, but it's time, Shimano.
Let's do it.
Let's talk some negative. So, did you like the start, how they didn't have the normal Marvel scroll in the music? And
I felt like it was weird.
It did feel weird to me, too. Yeah. It was clearly intentional. It felt like, it was black and white, almost like they were wanting you to think it's like an old, spy thriller.
Yeah.
Where it never really felt again, because you think of Winter Soldier as Captain America: The Winter Soldier as a spy thriller.
That is, yeah,
and it
legitimately maybe the best
this ain't
movie
that
in the entire MCU.
Right? Exactly. We've talked at length about that.
Yes.
And so it's it never. it was never that good.
But then they never I think also the problem is they never keep that feel. The movie doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Because there's too much levity in my mind with a lot of what they do.
Yeah.
For it to feel like that, like if they're going to go for a spy thriller, you gotta go you gotta go for it. You know, like you can't, go halfway if you're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Which brings me to one of my first points. Joaquin. I did not particularly like his character.
You talking Torres, the new Falcon?
Yes, the new Falcon.
Yeah.
I didn't really necessarily like his character. I felt like he was a little too slapsticky in a lot of ways. Like they were trying to make him the comedic relief, and like I felt like it was that. And
felt a little forced.
It felt a little forced, and then I think because they were trying to introduce him as this, because like although he had been he was at least in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, maybe one other movie.
No, I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah.
But anyway, and I feel like he got introduced, but like I feel like they were trying to make like this big introduction, almost like they were trying to make him almost like Louise, but like an action version of Louise
from Ant-Man.
In a way where they're trying to just make him like the comedic relief and things like that. But he was playing like I didn't like the hype man role that he played in in some of it, because like I know they were trying to make the Cap suit seem amazing, but there was always like I don't know, they were almost kind of treating us like we were stupid in a way at the beginning, because so when he was in the first Sidewinder fight, every time he would do something, there would be a comment to that other soldier that was with him,
right?
And it was that comment was actually for the audience, and he was just like he was straight up being just like a hype man, up there, and just being like, oh yeah, like that vibranium from the like
the Wakandans.
From the Wakandans, we got that from
like
helping him out that one time.
Yeah.
Like, and it felt like, okay, we've seen this before in the MCU.
Let it breathe.
You can like that purple on its own when you see it get hit, it lights up, and then he does the action. You know what that is if you've ever watched the MCU.
Exactly.
You know that is Wakandan technology. You do not need to be telling us that
mid-fight, like a play-by-play commentator.
Yes. So I did not enjoy that from him.
Yeah.
And maybe that just kind of spoiled the view. And honestly, I hated his suit.
It looked weird.
His helmet, awful.
Dude, his helmet looked uncomfortable.
Yes, it was like it looked like they essentially just made a CG costume entirely.
Yeah.
I did not. One thing I found it annoying how much a character who is as fragile as Anthony Mackie is.
Yeah.
Just because, in comparison to a superpowered being.
Yeah. Okay.
How much during a fight he removed his helmet. Like I understand the reason why they did it, because because we want their star's face to be there, but he took his helmet off too much.
Yeah, right, for sure. All right, I'm trying to think what the things that drove me nuts. So again, my biggest problem with this whole movie is the pacing of it. It's one of those things where I can't quite put my thumb on it, but like right from the jump, I remember leaning over to my wife and saying like, oh my, like it just feels, the pacing feels weird.
Yeah.
They rushed into like, oh yeah, Ross is president now.
Yeah.
Which again, it's like, okay, the last time, I know it's a different president, but the last time there was a president, he basically said it's like all out war against Skrulls.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we're not, and by the way, didn't reference, and to some extent, it's understandable because the show was hot garbage, didn't reference anything from Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Which feels like it's in a very similar mini universe here, very grounded, but that show was terrible. So maybe they were like, let's just not. But it just felt so rushed, Amano. Like I really, I think of like movies with good starts. Like again, the biggest example is always like Nolan films.
Oh yeah.
Like the first 5 minutes are always amazing.
Yes.
And you see just how formidable the villain is, usually, almost always.
Yeah.
Or the dire stakes of what's happening.
Yes.
Right? And it takes time to build and you savor it. And here in this movie, it was just like, all right, new president. We got this mission in Mexico. And then all the things you were just talking about, it just felt forced, a little cringe, maybe a little cheesy.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to writers. I don't know what the problem is, but it feels like, yeah, maybe they should have had some better writers on this. I don't know.
Maybe. You know, and honestly, I feel like they made a misstep and I know Red Hulk's supposed to be like the power side, but I don't know, like I felt like the muscle brain combo didn't particularly work for me because you know we had Tim Blake Nelson being the brains, and then we had Giancarlo Esposito Sidewinder.
Yeah,
supposed to be the muscle side of that combo, and honestly, it didn't quite hit for me. Like I love Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah, he is
great.
Phenomenal, but he is not a muscle villain.
Right.
He is you're in the room and he's talking to you and he's intimidating you with his voice.
And he's outsmarting you in every way.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That is more of what he is.
Right.
Like I didn't quite like I just did not like the fact that he was being used as essentially the muscle.
Again, couldn't agree more. This is a casting problem. He is not a problem. He's a phenomenal actor. Yeah. But just like they didn't have a good spot for him. And what's so strange, so I don't know all of the reshoots, but there's a lot of reshoots in this movie. And at times it feels that way again, which gets my pacing problem where it just feels strange. And one of them is he wasn't originally supposed to play Sidewinder. Like originally they had literally WWE superstar wrestler Seth Rollins cast to play that role.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and they even did some shots with him. And then reshoots, and now they have Esposito, which, again, you can't blame him for going after a big-name actor.
Yeah. But just, like, the understanding who you're casting.
Let him – like, you understood who you were casting with Harrison Ford. Like, that worked great. So it's like, man, you just wish he was in a better spot. So, yeah, I agree. He wasn't great as the muscle. And really, maybe we could talk about Stearns for a minute. Like – okay.
Like I think he would have been great if they had paired him in a stronger relationship with Stearns.
Right.
Like as maybe his right-hand man who was kind of like his...
They were working together.
Yeah, and he was kind of like the Stearns came up with the ideas and then it was his job to implement them.
Yeah. Right.
Not necessarily be the hands-on dude, but he was kind of like controlling everything that was going on that Stearns was putting into play.
Right.
You know, and then like had maybe some like they had Copperhead as well in there, and maybe just had him be like the muscle, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And taking him just like a step out of the front lines. Because like they had the scene where he fights Sidewinder after Sidewinder blows up his truck.
Right.
And like, I feel like what they were trying to do is they were trying to recreate the scene where Bucky and Cap fight in Winter Soldier.
And it's not even close.
And it is, which is one of the greatest.
Yeah, it's an iconic scene.
Like, it's one of the greatest hand-to-hand combat scenes you ever see.
But can I say, speaking to that, which again, we're going to compare this movie to other Captain America movies, one of the great things about those fight scenes in Winter Soldier, the music.
Yeah.
Which gets back to the pacing. It just felt off. Even my wife said this during the movie. She's like, the music just doesn't seem to be working with the movie at all.
Yeah.
And so, like, this scene where he's fighting him, he blows his truck up, which R.I.P. to that beautiful truck. I mean, Sidewinder took care of that truck pretty quickly. Let's be real. It just, it felt off.
And I thought it was really weird. They should, that he just disappears from the truck and is just safe. Because I don't know, because they could have used that moment for tension. Like, they could have done something.
He's in the truck stressing for a minute.
Yeah, they could have, because once again, throwing out another scene, the Samuel L. Jackson scene in his SUV.
Movie. Yeah.
Like, phenomenal, scene of, building tension, giving him, at least a few seconds where he had to at least think and show that he had, that he can get out. Something.
Yes, I totally agree. So it's like, I think the reshoots impacted it drastically, both in regards to The pacing of the movie, Sidewinder's character, I think all the stuff with Red Hulk seemed weird at the end.
Yeah.
And
straight up the fact that none of the three so-called villains, I don't think, are ever in the same room. If you're gonna I don't think you ever see Sidewinder,
the leader,
or Stearns.
They call him. Apparently, he's the leader.
Yes.
Which, yeah,
or Red Hulk.
Yeah,
in the in the same room at the same time. I think it was a really weird. So it felt very disjointed. Like they didn't feel like they were a part of the same storyline in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly. Which, speaking of the leader. Which is fun to call him that because not once did they refer to him in that way at all. Again, cool that Stearns is there, but he looked awful to me. And I know he's supposed to have a really big head, but
honestly, they toned down his head.
Yeah, they toned down his head, but it looked bad. Like it was like grotesque looking. Like the leader in the comics looks more, it's like smooth head. And so anyways, again, it just felt like overly simple. Like
he needed some muscle next to him.
Yeah.
Like his character doesn't work if he doesn't have muscle.
So he shows up somehow. I know he's like brilliantly intelligent.
Yes.
Right? He's like AI, living AI essentially. But like he shows up to a Navy SEAL compound and just kills a Navy SEAL like
and
that.
Just walks away.
He shows up to the house of like some admiral that gets him a phone call to call directly to the line of the president while he's on the plane.
Yeah.
And just kills those people to get in that house like it's nothing. Like
I feel like they should have removed him a little bit from it. Once again, I feel like he could have done those things, but then had somebody who was muscle do it for him. I think it would have looked cooler, if it would have felt cooler if they removed him a little bit. I think they were trying to make him too hands-on.
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense.
And can he control anybody with flashes of light and music? Or do all those people have to have been tested on at Camp Echo 1? I didn't really get clarity from that. Did you?
I see the problem. Okay, so I think they have to have direct contact for the flashes of light because, I guess they could have gotten the old Captain America.
Yeah, Isaiah Bradley.
Bradley could have been at Echo 1 at some point in time, but
a long time ago.
It would have been a long time ago. Because otherwise, he doesn't make sense as someone who would have been affected by that.
Right. It's just yes.
I guess what I'm guessing is, and how do you another thing how do you know what two pilots are going to be stationed?
Exactly.
There's a lot of, and I get he's all about probability and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like it's, I don't know. It's
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is a great movie. The main antagonist is AI, who does deal with probability, and it works. But you know why it works? Because they remove the AI, and then they have muscle, whatever that, I can't remember that guy's name. But they have someone who is doing the muscle for him. So yeah, it just felt. Again, dude.
It would have been cool if he had shown up and kind of been stepping back and just at the Admiral's house, and then just had maybe that's when Giancarlo Esposito shows up. He shows up behind the two of them and kills both of them. Yeah, for him.
Or literally is a blade away from killing his wife, so that the Admiral gives him what he wants. But he doesn't have to kill the Admiral.
Yeah,
he didn't really have to kill that guy.
He didn't.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, I don't know. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to make him seem more menacing. But once again, it's
and also, did he have to turn himself in? He basically, he could have just posted on Twitter. To some extent, this sounds so stupid, but when he has that moment where he walks up to Sam, who's just taking a break in the park or whatever, or outside of a hospital, actually, I think. He's like, I'm here to turn myself in and show each of us the real General or President Ross, who he really is. But it's did he actually have to turn himself in to do that, or could he have just like put that information out in the out into the universe?
I think it was kind of supposed to be like this idea of it would be news if he was caught. It wouldn't have been really news if he just posted some random thing, because then it's like you're dealing with authenticity and you're dealing with that kind of things. So him actually being caught led into that, and I think it was almost like a martyr moment. Like I think that's kind of what he was trying to do. It was like he had completed his like quote unquote mission,
right? Yeah.
And I think they were kind of trying to do like almost like a Baron Zemo storyline.
Yeah,
and I felt like it was a lot that was pasted from that Baron Zemo storyline, where he was going to make them destroy themselves.
Once again, another reference to another Captain America movie that's far superior to this one.
Yes,
because better writing, better directing, better action, better storyline, better everything. So
it's built on. Once again, it's built on a foundation. Like all this stuff is foundationally set up, whereas this was all new.
Yeah.
Like they pulled things, but they weren't things that were ever related to each other. Like, like the Incredible Hulk wasn't connected to Cap. Eternals wasn't attached to Cap.
Yeah.
You know, Adamantium was never attached to Cap before, but they kind of pull those things all together. Yeah. Whereas everything that was from like Civil War was based off of things directly related to those characters.
Right.
The deaths of Tony Stark's family, the super soldier serum and their connection with Cap and you know, and Bucky, and literally having them connected by the fact that he killed his family. You know, like they built this foundation that was there the entire, like it was organic, and it was already, it made sense for it to be there.
Yeah, this one, it didn't really make so much sense. Like you get a little bit of like Ross and Sam. They had some beef through Civil War, which that connects, and they addressed that at the beginning. Yeah. But okay. One thing I think I like. Well, what did you think? Actually, I don't know. What did you think of the former Black Widow, the short girl that?
I like the idea of her. I don't know if it was particularly well acted.
Okay.
Initially I was like, okay, this could be
she's
cool.
a force. Yeah.
Like I said, I was like, okay. For a second, I thought she was just going to be another, like Isaiah Bradley in that moment, where it was like she was controlled. But then she kind of doing some investigating, and I was like, and you were kind of like wondering where her allegiances lied.
Yeah.
Because you were like, is she just going to follow the president all the way, whatever he says? Does she have is she a villain, like off to the side?
Yeah.
And then, like, I think her path was a good path. I enjoyed the fact that she kind of had her own mind, and she was willing to follow the facts.
Yeah.
And because I did feel like for a moment when she watches I almost felt like she was going to erase the video of Isaiah Bradley getting flashed.
Right. Yeah.
Because, like, it didn't fit into her narrative for a second.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that might have happened, but then she doesn't.
Because she seemed a little sketch at first.
Yes, she definitely seemed sketchy. And then, like, the fact that she was a former Black Widow, we find out, and things like that kind of like were like, oh, okay, like, where does she lie? Although up until this point, essentially all the Black Widows are good in a way, at least, because you think, you know, like, you know, Yelena, you know, Natasha, and you know, and now her,
right?
Like, all of them are essentially
But again, I'm assuming this is to reshoots. At one point, she shows up. I can't remember which scene. But I remember she's wearing like a jacket or something. But underneath it, she's clearly got some sort of cool suit, like action suit.
Yeah.
But you never see it. And I'm like, it was weird. I was like, wait a minute. They never showed her like fight wearing that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, in my mind, that had to be one of the things they just.
Well, they were trying to almost recreate a Iron Man 2. Or they had an idea for that.
I think, in my theory, I think at some point we'll know more. But like, there's probably a scene where she does more. Like, she suits up.
Yeah.
And they just cut it. because you see her wearing it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that hallway fight that Black Widow has in Iron Man 2.
Right.
Like that's her coming out.
That's her moment. Yeah. I think so. And then they just didn't. So
yeah. And I don't know. One issue I have is I don't know if she can handle the acting in this, because I don't know, her acting was not
super
did
great.
not seem like it was super top notch.
Yeah, I feel that. Okay, here's the big, I think, negative. So I knew, well, actually I didn't know fully, but I had a feeling, like when you watch the marketing for this movie, Red Hulk's everywhere. Okay, so I think they're portraying it like he's the main threat, the main villain. I didn't see that coming into the movie, but all I could think of, you know what would have made this movie just way better?
What?
Is if the whole time you didn't know that Ross was going to be Red Hulk.
Yeah.
But they had to release that, and they had to make it a big part of the marketing to get people in the seats. But I think it ruined the moment. And the fight was so short.
Yeah. And it was insanely anticlimactic.
Yes. Super anticlimactic. You're talking specifically how it ended.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Yes. Like, they go to the cherry trees or cherry blossom trees, right?
I actually would have preferred it if they didn't fight in the first time that he was like, if he was able to talk him down that first time that he talked about it. Like, if it had been a little bit of a longer conversation right there and he was able to talk him down.
Yeah.
I actually have been more okay with that than with him throwing that line in there and being like, oh, well, that didn't work. And then he ends up fighting him. And then he just brings up essentially the same line again. And this time it works.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't land for me. It was, I don't know. It was, once again, it was one of those things where it was like, it's not Anthony Mackie's fault.
Nope.
And it's not his character's fault.
Nope.
It's the fact there was no one on it. In the word, there were only two things that were going to happen in that fight. It was going to end anticlimactically, or you weren't going to believe the ending.
Yeah.
Because you were like, there's no way that he's ever going.
No way Sam's going to win.
Hulk.
No.
Like, in a fight. So, like, those are your two options. Either he was going to anticlimactically talk down Red Hulk, which I don't think he really did successfully in a storytelling way.
Yeah.
He, of course, did successfully in the fact that it happened.
Yes.
But it wasn't necessarily fulfilling to what was happening. Like, it was much more fulfilling when Black Widow does it to the Hulk, and when she's, talking him down than it was in this moment.
Yep.
You know what would have been great? If Betsy had shown up then.
Betty, yes.
Betty.
I agree.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep on saying.
It's okay, but I'm with you.
What if she had,
she's behind some police escort getting held off.
And she's just like, and she just comes out, and she just like.
Yep.
That's her moment of.
I honestly thought they were doing that.
Like, that would have been so much cooler if that had been the moment, and you didn't know that Liv Tyler was going to be in the movie, or you weren't sure,
right?
And then you're like, she's there, and then it's like she talked him down. That would have been an amazing moment of a father and a daughter reconciliation.
Yes, and again, this is where the reshoots. It was so obvious. It was hot. It was a hot mess watching that scene where he's talking him down.
It's so bad.
It was so bad.
It's not super bad on the Red Hulk side, but on his side.
Yeah, on Sam's side, it's
awful.
terrible. Yeah. It literally looks terrible. And again, it just makes you wonder, what was the original plan? What did this scene really look like originally? Why did they cut it? Was it so bad that, because to some extent what we got wasn't good. So was it worse? I'm assuming it was worse because they changed it.
Yeah, all I can think of is the writers got to this scene and they had their head in their hands and they're like,
"Oh, what have we done?
How do we end this? We've written ourselves into a corner that we don't have a way out of."
Yes, exactly. So, and I will say something I found on, I read this on Reddit. I did a little bit of things on Reddit or reading a little things, and one of them was talk about because I was curious, like I couldn't quite, you know me, I'm not as smart as you guys are when it comes to all this actual movie stuff. Like I don't always notice CGI, good or bad.
Yeah.
But I was like, the pacing felt off. So I was like, I'm going to go try to look into this. I was like, did they cut some scenes? And this is where I would learn, yeah, they reshot a lot of things around the Red Hulk scene. And there's a part, apparently, I need to confirm this when it comes to Disney Plus because I'm not spending any more money on this movie. But when they're leaving the White House and they go past the Washington Monument,
yeah,
in the background, apparently you can see some like cop cars that are like thrown. They're like already flipped over.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's other scenes in that moment by the Washington Monument that they were supposed to have, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
So again, they just cut so many things.
Or if like Banner had shown up.
Jeez.
Like,
man.
how cool would that have been to see the Hulk like there?
Yes.
And like maybe something ends up happening. He fights him for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he's able to get he's able to then he uses Cap as a secondary. He's like, in my car there's a serum. Like, well, I'm going to get him down. You hit him with the serum and he'll change.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it just again, hindsight's always 20/20. I don't know how to make a good movie, but Marvel has made so many good ones over the years, and it just feels like this was not one of them. So, okay, there's one more big thing to discuss in my mind that's negative. But
okay.
Anything else you could think of?
Not on the top of my head, other than the fact that I don't understand why the president is making calls on incoming missiles. That seemed a little odd. But my military mind is clicking a little bit there.
Oh, you mean when he's on the warship and like intercepting those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, why is he the one calling out send intercepting missiles?
Yeah, I think that one's a little easier for me to explain because it's Ross. In my mind, it's like Ross would be the control freak that because he's there, he would want like. But here's what makes it make sense. He forcibly removes the guy who's in charge.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Which would make sense.
Yeah.
But they didn't show that. He's just there.
They don't show that. Well, and what also doesn't make sense is in the military, like an admiral is not going to take a general's, which is what he was. He was not an admiral in the Navy isn't going to let a general in the Army tell him how to defend his ships.
Sure. Yeah. But as the president, I'm sure he would be able to do whatever he wants, right?
I mean, I don't think so in that situation. I think the admiral would, like, it's when it comes to the defense of the ship, yes. Like, he could be like, do this. The president could be like, do this. But the admiral has to be like, okay. Then he has to put it through his military filter.
Sure. I agree that it was weird. I think that could be that could be one of the easier things they could have explained well, but they don't explain really anything well in this movie.
All right, let's get to that last big
something
point.
They try to explain well. Post-credit scene. Let's talk about this post-credit scene, Shimano.
Yeah.
Literally, still is he on the raft?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so Stearns and Ross are on the raft together.
Yeah.
Sam's talking to Stearns. Again, it felt just like the pace of even this scene felt a little weird. And Stearns says, "You want to know something that's funny?" And then Sam's like, "I don't think we see humor the same way or whatever, blah, blah, blah." And basically he just tells him, like, he's trying to tell him about the multiverse.
Yeah.
That's how I took it. Is that how you took it?
Yeah, that's where I was leaning as well.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Initially, I thought he was going to talk about, like, Doomsday or something like that.
Sure.
Or maybe even Galactus.
Yeah.
But as a possible threat. But, yeah, it seems more like he was going for the multiverse. I feel like they were almost trying to steal the scene from... Gosh, I can't remember which DC movie it was. Mm-hmm. But there's a very similar scene where Lex Luthor is in prison and... essentially he has a very similar scene where he was like, he's coming.
Oh yeah, is this at the end of Batman vs Superman, right?
Yeah. And basically he's talking about Darkseid coming.
Yeah. I mean, I remember thinking, oh, cool. I waited for that post-credit scene, and it was. I mean, I guess to some extent, I gotta remember what we know about the multiverse threats. I'm assuming Captain America doesn't. I'm assuming Sam doesn't know all this, is unaware of all this stuff. Even though this is in 2027 at this point, right? This is in the future from where we're at. How would he not know by now? And I guess to some extent, there's no Avengers, and then we didn't really talk about that. But like, hey,
essentially the only multiversal contact that we've seen was completely encapsulated in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I mean, there's all the Loki stuff.
Yeah, but once again, all that stuff is like self-contained.
No, I get that, and that's why I'm saying, like, to some extent, they have to make Sam aware of this because he's got to be crucial. He's got to be critically important for the future. I mean, he didn't rebuild the Avengers in this movie. They didn't even leave it as if he's going to.
Yeah.
But there's an Avengers movie like, what, a year from now?
Yeah, there's supposed to be one in 2026.
Bro, are you for real?
What's even weirder is like the fact that throwing out Thunderbolts, which comes out in like 2 months.
2 months.
Or 3 months. Is essentially like the Avengers aren't coming. And it's like, okay.
So we're going to get our own Suicide Squad, but not a Suicide Squad.
So it's interesting.
I'm nervous about this. When I watched the Fantastic Four trailer, I'm like, okay, this looks good.
That looks solid.
I think it's going to be good. We'll see. I mean, even the Thunderbolts, I'm positive on that too.
It could be fun, at least.
It could be fun. I think the action could be good. But the thought of like, oh yeah, there's an Avengers movie, like supposedly a year away.
Yeah, and honestly, to tell you the truth, I could not tell you who's going to be in it.
No.
Like, to the point of like...
It's called Doomsday, so it's...
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, the heroes.
Right.
Who's going to be...
Who are the Avengers?
Yes.
It took... I don't know, man.
Because, like, you had very, like... Okay, leading up to the first Avengers, let's keep it simple. We'll just do the first Avengers.
Yeah.
You had a specific Iron Man movie, a specific Cap movie, a specific Thor movie.
A second Iron Man movie.
And a second Iron Man
and
movie.
A Hulk movie.
Which
wasn't as connected, but it was...
You had a Hulk, so you had already introduced War Machine and, as a possibility... War Machine hadn't been... Sorry. But Black Widow had also been introduced.
Yep.
So you had a team of 5, at least.
And, Hawkeye was introduced in Thor.
Yes. Even though I won't really count that one because it was literally like a 5-second cameo.
Okay, that's fair. He wasn't a big part of the movie, yeah.
You had significant screen time that felt like it was leading to something else,
Yeah.
With all these characters, whereas I don't know, like, if any of the Avengers are facing, like, okay, is Shang-Chi going to be in there? Is Doctor Strange? Is Spider-Man? Is Cap? I think Cap is pretty certain, but, like, right now, and then you think about, like,
Young Avengers, maybe, but
yeah, then you got the Young Avengers. Are Thunderbolts, like, are they going to be involved?
Right. Is Fury going to be involved?
Yeah.
Right?
Is Fury going to be involved? Like, you don't really have, I don't feel like we have enough concrete evidence of who is going to be in it. Are the Fantastic Four going to be in it?
That's right. Yeah.
Are X-Men going to be in it? Like, I don't know.
Dude, it feels like they just slowed down, and I'm like, y'all need to slow down again.
Yeah.
I'm nervous, bro. I'm nervous. I mean, we're going to be here for it. Whether good or bad, we're going to cover it in this podcast. But, yeah, I don't know. All right, Shamato, any other thoughts, man? Any other thoughts on Captain America Brave New World?
I mean, it didn't necessarily, I say, tank the progress of the MCU, but it didn't exactly move anything forward.
Didn't move anything forward. And I love Anthony Mackie. I think he's been hard done. So the Falcon and Winter Soldier show and now this movie, both of them had to deal with reshoots, like
Yeah.
significant story redirections, which we won't really know about for I don't know how long until we get the tell-all of what really went down, right? So I think he's hamstrung a little bit through that. Also, do wonder, does he have the because
Gravitas.
because he was the sidekick for so long.
Yeah.
You know, just take the shot, brother. Take the super soldier serum, and we're gonna feel different.
Yeah.
Take the steroids, man.
Yeah.
Makes baseball better.
Mm-hmm. Just look at Barry Bonds.
That's right. It was some fun years. All right. Okay. I think that's it, Shamato. I think we're done.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. We Sandy, I know you're listening. We miss you. Wish you were here. Again, we got to watch the movie with you, but you weren't here. It's a bummer. For all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking around. Some of you are probably thinking, oh, dude, I just remembered. Justin sent me a text. So let me look at his message. So here's his thoughts on the film. You ready? All right, here's my thoughts on Captain America. Honestly, I loved it. Marvel is back. I think Sam Wilson is a better Captain America than Steve Rogers. The story was amazing. Overall, I think it was better than even Thor Ragnarok and Winter Soldier.
What about Endgame?
Dude, I'm just kidding. He didn't say any of this, bro. I just made all that up.
I know.
He said he thought Sam Wilson did a phenomenal job as the character Captain America. He must mean Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
Not Sam Wilson. Okay. He said, I thought the story was kind of mid, but overall I liked it. Better than Love and Thunder, which when we left the theater last night, someone said, was this better than Thor Love and Thunder? And I was like, ooh, I had to really think about that. I think I liked Love and Thunder better, but that's not saying much because I didn't really like that movie.
I feel like Love and Thunder was worse for me.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like, especially from where it was falling from.
Where it was falling from, for sure. Okay, he says, but I think it might be just in the middle. I don't think it's necessarily terrible. I don't think it's great. It kind of was just there. The best thing about it was Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford. They kind of fumbled the ball with the leader and the storyline. So, yeah, overall, he said solid meh.
Yeah.
Marvel is not back, not yet. I think they need multiple, a solid run of multiple movies that are,
top tier
before I start thinking they're back. But we will be back. We'll be reviewing all of it, and we hope that you will join us as well as we continue to review other projects like this. So, thanks again for tuning in. With all that in mind, for my good friend Anthony Amato, who we like to call Shamato, this is T-Roll saying thank you so much for listening to the Royal Geek Podcast. We will see you next time, you peasants.